Morning. Who joined the call, please?
Tony Wassley from Department of Wildlife.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Susan, you ready?
We're ready.
We're ready. Okay. Good morning. I would like to call today's meeting of the State of Nevada Board of Examiners to order for Tuesday, October 13th, 2020. Could I ask the clerk to take the roll, please?
Governor Sisolak.
Here.
Secretary of State Sagaski.
I'm here, thank you.
Attorney General Ford.
Here.
Let the record reflect we do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. Thank you. Moving in item number 2, public comment. This is the first time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board on any issue on the agenda, please step forward, identify yourself for the record, and comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any written or telephonic comment?
We do have one comment that was submitted in writing, and I don't know if the individual is on the phone or not, but I have the comments, and I can read those into the record if you'd like.
Is this the one on the inmate Edmund Green?
That is correct.
Kyle, do you want us to read this in the record or just submit it? You can just submit that into the record if you would.
Okay, we will submit that into the record. This is from Patricia Atkinson, and as you noted, it is for Green's grievance.
Right. Is this the one?
Sorry, say that again?
I don't know, I heard somebody talking, but it wasn't me. Do we have anybody on the phone for public comment?
Yes, Governor.
Okay, who's?
My name's Patricia Adkisson, Adkisson.
Okay, hi.
Can I go ahead and read my public comment?
Sure.
Good morning. My name is Patricia Adkisson. I submitted public comment to the Board of Prison Commissioners last week, commenting in support of the treatment of all inmates affected by Hep C. My comments today relate to agenda item number 7 and specifically to the fiscal jurisprudence related to the actual number of inmates reported by NDOC in need of treatment. It is true that NDOC has a duty to treat affected inmates and that the expense is considerable. However, the number of inmates reported by NDOC in need of treatment has been artificially misrepresented and increased as a result of a practice and custom by NDOC to create and implement standards that have not received approval of the Board of Prison Commissioners. Last week, I reported similar conduct to the commissioners regarding the claimed revised AR-258. Governor Sisolak, you immediately suspended the claimed revised AR-258. After making a determination that it was in fact the result of a unilateral function by NDOC not permitted. In this instance, the NDOC has unilaterally created and implemented a standard that is in conflict with the lawfully adopted standard in AR 504. AR 504 mandates that NDOC must identify a felony judgment in order to maintain custody. However, the de facto standard unilaterally created by NDOC treats non-offenses as actual offenses, even to the extent of NDOC making up a new category of offense to include a claimed category F. This conduct by NDOC improperly affects the number of inmates that NDOC is required to treat. It is of great concern to the public's trust and to the public resources NDOC requires. Specifically, when considering NRS 193165 use of a firearm, NDOC calls it a category F. This standard was not approved by the board and artificially increases the number of inmates for treatment of Hep C. But for NDOC's unilaterally created and implementation of the described standard, a significant number of inmates would not be in the custody of NDOC. These de facto standards artificially increase the costs related to Hep C treatment. AR 504 directs NDOC to reject inmates without a felony judgment. Please see NDOC's official response setting forth the unilateral standard created by NDOC. I attached my public comment submitted by email yesterday, along with inmate grievance number 200-630-59385. I apologize if my comments appear to include a legal conclusion. That is not my intent. My concerns relate to ethics in government and to ensure that the NDOC is limited to the standards set forth by the board in AR 504. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other callers with public comment? Anyone else? Can someone tell me, is there anybody else on the phone?
There is not anyone else that we were aware of.
Okay, I will close public comment on item number 2, move on to item number 3, approval of the minutes from the September 8th meeting. Do I have a motion on that?
So moved. This is Barbara Sagaski.
We have a motion on the floor from Secretary Sagaski. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. That motion passes. Item number 4, state vehicle purchases.
There are 2 requests for 11 vehicles in this agenda item. The first request is from Peace Officer Standards and Training, or POST, to purchase 3 replacement vehicles for $9,453. The vehicles that are being replaced have met the age and mileage requirements in SAM, and funding for these vehicles is included in the agency's budget. The second request is from the Department of Wildlife for 8 replacement vehicles for $294,547. The vehicles being replaced have met the age and or mileage requirements in SAM, and funding for these vehicles is included in the agency's legislatively approved budgets. Are there any questions?
I just want to clarify for the record, for the post vehicles, that these are some used, beat-up kind of vehicles that they use for training, because they're only $3,100 a piece, and not normally what we have on the agenda, correct?
Correct. This is a standard practice for Post to purchase used vehicles for their operation.
Okay. Do we have any discussion on this agenda item or a motion?
I have a motion. This is Barbara Sagaski. I move for approval on number 5.
Secretary Sagaski has moved approval. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Governor, I said number 5. I meant number 4. So can you read? It's not state vehicle purchases on number 4. And
Yes.
I move for approval. Thank you.
Can the record reflect that that motion from Secretary Sagaski was for item number 4, state vehicle purchases? And that vote was unanimous. Moving on to item number 5, authorization for and emergency contract with a current and or former state employee.
Pursuant to subsection 4 of NRS 333.705, an agency may contract with a former employee without first obtaining Board of Examiners approval if the term of the contract is for less than 4 months and the head of the using agency determines that an emergency exists. If a using agency contracts with an individual pursuant to this exception, they must submit a copy of the contract and a description of the emergency to the Board of Examiners, who shall review the contract and description of the emergency and notify the agency whether or not they would have approved the contract had it not been entered under the emergency provision. This item has 6 requests today. The first is from the Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation, and it is seeking favorable recommendation from the board on their use of the emergency provisions to contract with 2 former employees. The department contracted both of these former employees through Manpower from September 3rd, 2020 to January 3rd, 2021. Both of these employees retired in May of this year and have experience in unemployment insurance programs. These former employees have been hired to provide administrative duties related to these programs, including the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. Would you like to take action on all 6 of these items together, or do you want these taken by department?
Well, I've got a lawyer here. All together.
All together?
We'll do them all together.
Okay, I will move on to the...
Steve's legal colleague, Kyle George, has recommended we take them as a group.
Okay, I will move on to B, which is the Department of Public Safety Division of Emergency Management. This request also includes 2 former employees. The first was contracted through Manpower from April to July of 2020, and this employee performed resource and incident management coordination duties related to fires. The second employee was contracted through Manpower from April 6, 2020 to August 6, 2020 to perform public information duties related to COVID-19. And the third item, which includes 2 former employees, is from the Office of the Secretary of State. These individuals were contracted through the Marathon Staffing Group to perform duties needed to eliminate a backlog of document archiving and to provide training for new employees who will take their former positions. They both are contracted from September 8th through December 25th of 2020.
Okay, before we take a motion on this, I just got a question, and I should have asked you this in my briefing. When they're contracted through either Manpower or Marathon, how much do they get that the employee is not getting as a result of going through?
So that overhead cost, as I understand it, varies depending on whether or not the state agency found the employee and recommended them to the agency, or to the staffing agency so that the state could hire them. I believe for these ones, the rates are 21% and 24%. And I think it can go as high as 32% on that overhead cost.
Okay, this seems like a lot that they're getting for just being the conduit, but do I have a motion on this one?
I'll move approval, Mr. Governor.
We have a motion on the floor for item number 5A. The motion is for A, B, and C, I assume, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for A, B, and C. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Did Secretary Sagaski, did we get you for an aye?
I hope so. I said yes.
Okay, thank you. Item number 6, authorization to contract with a current and/or former state employee.
Item number 6 includes 6 requests to contract with former employees pursuant to NRS 333.705 subsection 1. The first 3 requests are from the Department of Administration Purchasing Division. The first item is to contract with a former employee to perform public information officer duties for the Department of Public Safety, Division of Emergency Management. This individual will be employed by Manpower through MSA number 18404. The second request is a contract with a former employee to perform hearing representative duties for the Department of Public Safety Parole Board. This individual will also be employed by Manpower. The third request is to contract with a former employee to perform uniformed security guard duties for various agencies and will be employed by Universal Protection Services, who does business as Allied Universal Security. The next 3 requests are from the Department of Transportation. The first item is to contract with a former employee to provide utility coordination services for projects statewide. This individual will be employed by Atkins North America. The second item is to contract with a former employee to perform project management duties on statewide projects. This individual will be employed by Horrocks Engineering on an on-call basis. And the final item is to contract with a former employee to perform policy and procedures oversight specialist duties, including design services. This individual will also be employed by Horrocks Engineering.
Do we have any discussion on either 6A and/or 6B? Do I have a motion on 6A and 6B?
I'll move approval.
We have a motion for approval on item 6A and 6B. Any discussion? Hearing seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 7, request for recommendation of approval of the IFC for an allocation amount from the contingency account.
Okay, there are 4 items under agenda item 7 today, and do you want to take these individually or do you want to take them as a group?
Individually.
Okay. The first item is the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and they are requesting an allocation of $344,467, and this is an adjustment to what was agendized. That request was reduced slightly, and this is to fund a geotechnical investigation into the cause of foundation seepage at the North Fork Dam.
Now, I've got a question to council. My understanding is because it's reduced, we can go ahead, right? If it was increased, we couldn't? Yeah, got it. Okay, that was a yes.
And board council's on the phone.
Oh, board council's on, I didn't know that. Okay, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, because it's reduced, it's fine. Roosevelt
Okay.
here.
Do we have any discussion on item number 7A?
Can I just ask, this is Barbara Sagaski, just how much is left in the fund itself? If I could know that, I'd appreciate it. And that's just an overall general. It's not about any one item or not.
Yes, my apologies. I should have told you that at the very beginning. The approximate balance in the contingency account is $18.2 million to cover unanticipated costs for the remainder of this fiscal year. If all of these items are approved, the remaining balance in the account will be approximately $6.9 million.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan.
Do we have a motion on item 7A?
I move approval, Mr. Governor.
We have a motion for approval from General Ford. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing, seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Item 7B.
This request is from the Department of Corrections for an allocation of $10,491,564 to fund costs of treatment of inmates infected with the hepatitis C virus. This would provide for the treatment of inmates in the current fiscal year as proposed in a consent decree that is attached.
I got this one in my prisons briefing. Do we have any questions on this one? Do I have a motion on 7B?
Approval.
We have a motion for approval. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. 7C.
This request is from the Department of Education for the Special Education Contingency Account. This is an allocation of $428,800 to replenish the Special Education Contingency Account.
Okay, any discussion on item number 7C? Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
We have a motion for approval. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 7D.
This request is from the Office of the Treasurer for an allocation of $16,949 to replenish the silicosis and disabled pensions account to meet statutory obligations through the end of the fiscal year.
Getting some background noise here. Do I have a motion on 7D?
Sorry, I'll move approval. Maybe my background noise, my apologies.
Okay, no problem. We have motion for approval. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 8, request to pay a court order.
Item number 8 is a request for approval from the Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation Employment Security Division to pay $68,646.17 for fees and administrative costs for work performed by a special master related to case CV 20-007755, and this is related to unemployment insurance.
Do we have any questions on 8, request to pay a court order? Do I have a motion on item number 8?
Move approval.
We have a motion for approval. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 9, request for approval to pay a tort claim pursuant to NRS 41.036.
This item represents a $160,000 claim for which the Office of the Attorney General recommends payment from the Tort Claims Fund, to McDonald Carano LLP, and this is as part of the Hep C prison litigation.
Okay, do we have any questions on this one? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion for approval on item number 9. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 10, request for designation of bad debts.
Pursuant to NRS 353C.220, item 6 is a request from the State Controller's Office for the board to designate 15,290 bad debts from various state agencies as uncollectible. The State Controller has determined it is impossible or impractical to collect these debts. By affirmative vote of a majority of the members, the board may designate the debts as bad debt if the board is satisfied the debt is impossible or impractical to collect. Upon designation, the State Controller will be notified to remove the debts from the state's accounting books. It is important to note that even though a debt is removed from the accounting books, it remains a legal and binding obligation owed by the debtor to the state. Are there any questions on this item?
Do we have the controller with us on the phone?
Yes, we do. Before Hoover.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not hearing. Was there somebody, is that a yes, Susan?
Yes, can you hear me now, Governor? It's Catherine Burns, State Controller.
Now I can hear you, Catherine. Yeah, could you just kind of walk us through what the process here is and how this comes about?
For write-off,
Yes.
we have a procedural manual that we follow for write-offs that's been established over a period of time. It's actually one of the last things that we do. We are authorized under NRS 353C.220 if we determine it's impossible or practicable to collect those debts. Then we send them in to the Board of Examiners to approve the write-off. The criteria included in the age of the accounts, which have not found assets or action and judgments, death of a debtor, and businesses which are no longer in business. In addition to state agencies, send bad debt accounts to the Controller's Office and specifically submission to the Board of Examiners for approval for write-off, as most agencies do not have the authority to submit bad debt to the write-off. Once the list of bad debt accounts has been written off, has been determined, the Controller's Office works with the applicable agencies to ensure the agencies agrees that the accounts should be written off and the amounts of the accounts are correct. The Controller's Office then verifies the Secretary of State information related to the state business license of each licensee as required by 353C.196 by Section 8. This list of bad debt accounts is then submitted to BOE. If BOE approves the debt, it will be written off. The Controller's Office notes that each account is in the NCIS system. The accounts are removed from the accounts receivable report purchased by the state, but are not removed from the NCIS system. The NCIS system 3853C states that the bad debt remains on the legal and binding obligations owed to the debtor to the state of Nevada. And so we don't actually remove it from the books. We're just having, we remove it from books, but we don't remove it from our database, so we still have it out for collection. Lori, can you go in more detail about the procedures that we use? I was pretty overview, and I know that we have,
This is Lori Hoover, Chief Deputy of the Controller's Office. Is there any specific area you'd like us to go into more detail?
No, I would just like a general overview that this was turned over to collection agencies. Is it with the collection agency now? I mean, where does it stand right now?
Okay, so this is Lori Hoover. I'll back up a little bit. What Catherine Byrne was discussing was a specific write-off process, but the actual collection process, we have two processes or two areas. The agencies will send debt to us, bad debt to us for collection, and if they're sent to us or specifically just to be sent to write-off. If it is sent to us for debt collection, then we go through a process of verifying that those debt against our vendors for accounts payable to see if there's any way to do a vendor offset. Then after that, a letter is sent out to each of the debtors to let them know that the Controller's Office now owns that or is going to try to collect on that debt. If the debtor reaches out to the Controller's Office to try to make a payment, create a payment plan, that debt is maintained at the Controller's Office. If they don't contact the Controller's Office, then all of those accounts are automatically sent to one of the three outside collection agencies that we contract with. The outside agencies have their basic bad debt collection attempts. They're going out and trying to look for assets. They're checking addresses. If they determine that after a period of time that they can no longer, that this debt is uncollectible, they will send it back to the Controller's Office, and that becomes one of the accounts that is set up to go to write-off, to the BOE for approval for write-off the next time we send to the BOE. Then periodically throughout the time that we have any of the other debts that we receive, we still do compare them against the vendor, the Advantage vendor list to, again, ensure if there are any that we can offset against to make payments on. At the end of each month, after payments are received, the our collections section puts together a reconciliation, sends it out to the state agencies that are applicable that we've received funds from, to let them know how much money was received on each account and how it was allocated. The state controller's office gets to maintains or charges a 2% fee for handling the account, and then up to 35% can be retained for outside collection agencies or if the state controller's office or controller's office. Depending on statute, depending on the type of agency, if the agency is not general funded, then the remaining balance then goes back to that agency. If it is general funded, there are some other exclusions, but the remaining balance then goes into the debt reserve fund to fund our debt collection section.
Okay.
And then again, as Controller Burns stated, as we start realizing we have a system that has several criteria to determine whether or not accounts should go to write-off. If there's no assets found, if based on the age and no judgments, if the debtor has passed away, if they're out of business, then the system will create a report that says here are the list of accounts that should be written off. Our debt collection group works with the agency to ensure that the dollar amount is correct, and yes, these items should be written off. In addition, the agencies can send us accounts that are for write-off specifically with no collection attached to it. Some of the accounts that we submitted for today's approval are some of those for just collection only because of the age of the account with no judgment attached to it. At that point, we simply, again, verify that this information is correct, and we include it in the group that we pulled from our NCIS system and submitted to the GFO for COE agenda.
Okay. Let me ask.
Wanted to add another piece? Can I add another piece?
Sure.
There has been continual discussion about how we deal with businesses that are still continuing to operate in another business name and license. And under the current NRS, the state does not have the ability to seize assets of another entity for a debt incurred by a different entity. However, assets for debt payments can be attached through a judgment, lien, or levy. Controller's Office does verify debtor against Secretary of State's business license database to determine if the debtor has an active Nevada business license. However, NRS 353C.1965, it only allows the Secretary of State to validate that Nevada has a business license, but it does not allow for the deactivation of that business license.
Okay. Let me ask one of my colleagues, Secretary Sagaski. I know you have a very detailed and robust plan for collecting debts that are owed to the state, and does this follow similar? Are there any changes that could be made here in your expert opinion?
Thank you, Governor, for that question. This is one of the areas I did have some concern on, but I do, first of all, just want to thank the State Controller, Byrne, thank her for her call and calling me and talking to me. I really appreciate it. I didn't get anybody from the Governor's Office on Energy at all to call me back, so I was hoping to get some answers today. But I know that they've tried the debt collection, and I know that we try ours as well. But sometimes these people put their new business in a different name, and they don't have the same names for officers, and so it's hard to detect unless you send somebody out. So it does determine people being able to do the footwork, so to speak, to go out and do this. But when it's appropriate, I'd like to ask a couple questions, Governor, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And thank you again, Controller Byrne. I really appreciate you reaching out to my Chief Deputy and I. You had talked about the Governor's Office on Energy and that there were 6 groups that got about $2 million apiece. And the one thing that I was trying to find out was who they were, and I know all of this is before my time being in office, so all of the debts are, you can tell, have been worked and tried to get people to do that, exactly what the controller was talking about. So that's one of my questions is, who were the people that the six individuals that were given $2 million apiece, who were they? And then how much in total do we have in the controller's office that is debt worthy, that's going to keep coming to us? Does it roll over? Because this is pretty old. All the stuff that you have today that you're requesting is before my time here in office.
Thank you, Secretary. This is Catherine Burns, State Controller. I want to speak to the 6 items that we're talking about from the Governor's Office of Energy. These debts arose during the years September 2010, and then that's the oldest, and then the most recent one is February 2012. They were submitted to our office for write-off in August of 2017. They are loans. The business names are Avatar Energy, Enigma Energy, H2 Technologies, and Birkin Technologies, and they're at various amounts, but they're all in the $2 million range. Total is $11.9 million. And that is related to ARA money back in 2010. I don't have the details, so if we want more to know, we'll have to ask the Governor's Office of Energy.
Thank you so much, Controller. I really appreciate the added information that you've given me. And then do you know the total amount that you have bad debt right now to date or not?
Which was the total? This is Lori Hoover, Chief Deputy Controller. The total amount that we've requested to be written off of the $11.9 million is the total amount that we have from Department of Energy. We don't have any other accounts from them for bad.
I was meaning overall. I mean, the overall debt for the state, is there more than just this that's going to be coming? Do you have more, or is this total what you have right now? And thank you if that's the answer.
That would be a question. So that would be sorry, Lori Hoover for the record. That would be actually a question for the agencies. We don't necessarily know what they have on their books for bad debt or are retaining for bad debt until they send it to us.
No, I understand that. I'm just asking if we know about anything else that we have for bad debt, unless because this is pretty old. A lot of this is old, so did this just come over to you recently? Those are kind of the questions that I'm asking. How long have you had this, and how long did you know about it? Thank you.
Yes.
This is Lori Hoover. I can expand on that. I apologize for not understanding that. We did receive these in 2017, and had we not just entered into a new system, debt collection system, we would have probably brought this to BOE earlier. But in January of 2017, the debt collection group did implement a new debt collection system that is being used now. They went from all Excel spreadsheet database or worksheets into this system, and so it took them a while to make sure that the accounts entered into them were clean and correct. So we have not been submitting on an annual basis, but we're going to be trying to do that. So we shouldn't. There may still be older debt out there that the agencies are going to send us, but we should not be retaining them for more than a year as we start submitting on an annual basis to BOE.
Okay, thank you. So my question in reference to the governor's question is, once you receive it, do you do any debt collection for the state, or was it previously done and they send you their notes on how they've collected it or tried to collect it?
For the record, Lori Hoover, it depends on how they send it. There are batches of accounts that they will send specifically to the Controller's Office for debt collection procedures, and we will then follow our normal debt collection procedures. If they send us a list that is strictly for write-off processes, We have not in the past requested them to submit what type of collection efforts they put into these accounts. However, based on some of your prior questions, which we do appreciate, we've revisited our procedures, and we will be asking the agencies to give us a summary of what the debt collection procedures were for those debts that they're pending for write-off only.
But we do have agencies, and I'm not which ones are, that we do have an MOU with, and they do have to, and what that does is that we will allow them to conduct their own collection activities, but they have to submit to us what procedures they're going to follow before we authorize that agreement.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm hoping, Governor, that the Office of Energy will contact us. I'll support this today, just because of talking to the controller, the answers that I've gotten, but I would really like a call back from your Office on Energy just to answer some of the questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely, you will get a call. Do I have anybody on the line from the Governor's Office of Energy?
Thank you, Governor. This is David Bobzane from the Governor's Office of Energy. And Secretary Sagaski, I apologize for a lack of communication. We received an email requesting my cell number yesterday at 4:30 at our general office email. Unfortunately, we did not get back to you with that phone number until this morning, but happy to answer any questions for you now, or we can certainly have a side follow-up conversation. I'm happy to give you a call.
Thank you so much, Director. And I would like to call after this, unless the Governor has more questions, but I did have some questions about this, and I know you weren't there at the time, but would appreciate any feedback and follow up on that. And thank you so much for saying that.
Well, thank you, Secretary. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, thank you, Governor. Yeah, if I could, I'll give you my 30-second thumbnail on this. When I started on the job in 2019, yes, the debts had already been transmitted to the Comptroller's office, but nonetheless, I did have our agency's Deputy Attorney General look into these bad loans, and in every case, we just simply could not find a business entity. So these are definitely gone. They are in stark contrast to other loans that were made during the American Reinvestment Recovery Act era, 2009, 2011, and a lot of those have already been paid off, or are certainly we're receiving payments for them now.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Director. I really appreciate your help, and please do call. Thank you.
Okay, I will certainly do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bobzane. If you could call the Secretary. I've just got one last question, Controller Byrne. Do we ever sell the bad debts to an agency that they pay for them and they assume all resources associated with them? And I know you don't get a lot. You usually get 10, 15 cents on the dollar, but have we ever done that, or is that allowed by state law?
Yeah, it's factoring of accounts receivable.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is Lori Hoover from the Controller's Office, and I have Haiti Meeker here, who is the Chief Accountant for the collection process. We are allowed by state law to sell the debt, and I actually asked Haiti that when I started, and I'm going to let you answer that.
This is Haiti Meeker for the record. Yeah, we have been trying to sell those accounts.
Okay, I'm having trouble understanding what you're saying, so if you could.
So this is Katie. So yeah, we have been trying to sell the account receivables. We have some possibilities to do it, but also there are some limitations about that the type of accounts that we can sell, because the agencies, they may accept only the accounts that they are under the statute of limitations. That means accounts that they are probably less than 6 years old.
Okay, well, I didn't quite get the whole answer there, but Controller Byrne, if that's something that we need to address legislatively, the ability to sell these debts, I'd like an answer to that, so that, if we can sell them to an agency and they assume all risk associated with collection and non-collection, and we get something out of these things. I mean, I know at the county we could do that. I just don't know if you can do that at the state.
Thank you, Governor. That's a good question. It's Catherine Byrne, State Controller. Selling the receivables, it's like Haiti was saying, if they're too old, they will not accept them to sell, and the limit is around 6 years. The other thing is that our accounts receivable system can function doing some of that, where they will collect and then there'll be some fee taken out. But it's kind of how collection agencies work. But no, we have not formally had a overall discussion about factoring receivables, because there may be other things out there that could be of interest to use that kind of service.
Well, if we could look at that a little bit, maybe, I don't know what the thought of the board is, but something just to look at, I guess. That's just my opinion. Okay. Well, I've taken a lot of time. Do you ever do that, Secretary Sagaski?
This is Barbara, and no, we don't do that, debt collection, what you're talking about, and I don't think they can do it either. I think once it's reached a certain peak, but the bad debt is different than other debt that you can sell. I know what you're talking about.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion on this item?
I'll move for approval. This is Barbara Sagaski.
We have a motion for approval.
That I get some of my questions answered. Thank you, Governor.
Yeah, no, Director Bobzin's going to call you after we're done with this meeting. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on, item number 11, approval of proposed state administration manual changes.
Item number 11 is a request for approval to revise the State Administrative Manual, or SAM, Section 324, Independent Contract Review Procedure. This will allow for electronic and digital signatures, and Section 1616, Cellular Telephones. This aligns the State Administrative Manual with federal guidelines regarding non-taxability of cell phone stipends. Are there any questions on this?
I do not. Do we have any questions on item number 11?
No, move for approval, Governor.
We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on that motion, item 11? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 12, approval of proposed leases.
There are 7 leases in item 12 for approval by the board today. Are there any questions on any of these items?
I have none, Governor. This is Barbara. I'll move for approval on
We have a
item
motion.
12.
We have a motion on the floor on item number 12, approval of leases. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 13, approval of proposed contracts.
There are 30 contracts in agenda item 13 for approval by the board this morning. Are there any questions on any of these items?
Do we have any questions on these? Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
We have a motion for approval. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And again,
Governor,
Susan.
this is Barbara. I vote yes, but I had it on mute, and I'm sorry. I
Okay.
did have one thing I wanted to say. This is about the vetting the contractors or the vendors. And after our experience here at the Secretary of State's office and others that I've heard of other agencies, I can't stress enough that the legislature, before they approve these, that we need to do a better job of screening them out, talking to them, because we don't even know how much was already paid to the DOE or the deeder for the one on July 14th, 2020. They had a $6 million contract, and how much was already paid out to them. But I have some concerns about how we screen these, and better yet, a better way to vet the contractors or vendors that we use in the state. So sorry about that. Thank you.
No, I agree. Thank you very much. And I want to thank you, Susan, and your staff, because I always have questions going into my briefing, and you're able to answer them all, so I don't have to take everybody's time up now, and it makes it a lot easier for me, so thank you. Do we have a motion on item number 13, contracts?
Yes, I think there is a motion.
There is
I
a
think it's
motion on
already
the floor? Okay.
Yep.
We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 14, approval of proposed master service agreements.
There are 13 master services agreements in agenda item 14 for approval by the board this morning. Are there any questions on any of these items?
Do we have any questions by any board member on any of these items? Hearing and seeing none. Do I have a motion?
I move approval, Mr. Governor.
Do I have a motion for approval? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes as well. Item number 15, information item, clerk of the board contracts.
There are 41 contracts under the $50,000 threshold that were approved by the clerk between August 18th, 2020 and September 18th, 2020. Are there any questions on any of these items?
None. Move for approval. This is Barbara on 14, the master service agreement.
We did 14 already.
Oh,
We're
I'm
on
sorry.
15. Yeah,
Okay,
this
I
is an
apologize.
information item, clerk of the board contracts, no problem. Any questions on the clerk contracts? Seeing none. Moving on to item number 16 is the second time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board on any item, please step forward, identify yourself for the record. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any written comments?
We do not.
We have anybody on the phone?
This is Barbara Sagaski. Could I say something now, or do you want to wait until you ask for the board?
No, go ahead. We don't have any public comments, Susan, is that right?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, go ahead, Secretary, please.
Thank you. On 13, I failed to thank our treasurer, Zach Conine, and Michael Brown for calling me, talking me through their items. I really appreciate everything that they did for that. I did have some concerns about the COVID money being spent on certain issues. And so hopefully the AG has a response to that overall. But I just wanted to thank them so much for reaching out to me. And also, Governor, I'd like to thank your staff again for responding to us and telling us their opinion. My chief of staff goes over all this with a fine-tooth comb, and they've just been so accommodating. And again, I just want to thank them verbally and out loud, and thank you for allowing them to work with us.
Yeah, we're very, very fortunate. I appreciate it. Thank you, Susan, and all your staff for being so accommodating and facilitating answers to all of our questions as we go along the way. That being said, we'll close the public comment and move on to item number 17, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.